Tim MacMahon has done a wonderful job. Whenever I see that he has posted something on the mothership, I usually stop to read that. And I saw the latest article. And granted, Tim doesn't come up with the headline, but the headline caught my attention. James Harden and the Rockets are at a breaking point. And Tim MacMahon joins us now. What do you mean by that, Tim? They're at a breaking point.
Well, look, obviously, James Harden wants out. The Rockets at some point will accommodate that at a point when they deem appropriate, when they feel like there's fair value on the table. But really what the Rockets are right now is at a cultural reckoning. For 8 years, the Rockets' business philosophy when it came to basketball was kiss James Harden's ass and let's keep him as happy as possible. And that has spanned two owners. Really, Daryl Morey was the ringleader. He worked his butt off to get a star, to get a superstar. He was right on James Harden when a lot of people thought he was taking a huge risk on this guy who was a sixth man in OKC. And they did whatever they possibly could to keep him happy. And from, and really this is not necessarily an unusual philosophy. It's not unusual for a superstar to be able to determine what the travel schedule is, to be able to determine what the practice schedule is. Now, Harden would determine that based on what the club scene was in a certain city, whether they were going to stay over or not, or, practice schedule, hey, day off, let me get to Vegas, that sort of thing. But and then the power in the personnel moves, determining who's coaching, determining who his co-stars is. And then, honestly, I think all of this stuff, there's still not necessarily a consensus, people who were with Rockets, people who are still with the Rockets, whether it was the right approach, because look, they got 8 years of superstar performance. They got a perennial MVP candidate type of performance. They didn't get to the top of the mountain, but they were in that handful of teams that had a chance to contend, but it's crashing down on them now. And really, it's the Chris Paul and a package of picks for 1 year of rust and everybody wants out. That is the power flex by James Harden that is just crippling the Rockets franchise at this point.
But I don't understand it. He built it, and now he wants to escape it. It's like, hey, I built this house, but I don't like it. I got to get out. It's on fire here. He's the one that built this thing. And then I don't know where this came from, and maybe you can help me, that he had a problem with ownership and their politics, that was a reason that he wanted out.
I know that's been out there. I'll just say nothing in my reporting has suggested that's been an issue. So I can't really speak on the political thing because, again, I don't have that reporting. I don't know if there's any truth to that. I'll tell you this, though. If I build a house and that thing starts burning, I'm getting the hell out.
But he lit the fire, though, Tim.
Oh, well, hey.
That's it. He's the arsonist.
And I do not disagree with you. I think you are absolutely right. I think if we want to look at this thing, I think there's a lot of blame that you can pass around. I do think James Harden's taken a big slice of that, and insert your punchline on his waistline at this point. But this is the reality of the situation, and you know what? At some point, he will get his wish to be traded. He will not get to dictate the terms of that trade. He could dictate the terms of Chris Paul and a bundle of picks for Russell Westbrook, because he could say, hey, you either get Russ or I'm going to be a problem and I'm going to want to get the hell out of here. He wants to get the hell out now. He can't dictate the terms where he goes at this point. I do think there will be an offer that the Rockets deem fair at some point before the trade deadline, but it's not on the table right now.
And you don't have to trade him to a contender, because his list, oh, by the way, is filled with really good teams. Like, why not say we're going to, not that, and we've talked about this before, the Knicks don't have the assets here, but Sacramento or somebody like that, why am I giving in? I'm enabling one more time by saying, okay, James, we're going to send you to where, you want to go.
Why would Sacramento trade for James Harden knowing he wants nothing to do with being there, knowing he's going to be unhappy, knowing that in 2 years he's getting the hell out of Dodge? So that's the thing. Yeah. It's not that he necessarily gets to pick his team, and he's gone from Brooklyn to, Philly, and maybe these other teams, But it's not that he gets to pick the team, but it has to make sense for that team as well, because especially if the asking price remains what it is, young franchise cornerstone and a bundle of picks and or promising talent on rookie contracts, you're giving up a ton to get him. So you're not going to give up a ton to get a guy who's just unhappy, and doesn't want to be there. Is going to be, it's going to be a miserable experience. Then he's going to be gone.
But okay, handicap this though for me, Tim. If we look at this, does Milwaukee have the assets given what they?
Milwaukee's not a factor in this. Milwaukee's not a factor.
They gave up their draft picks. They gave up a lot to get Drew Holiday.
Well, that and Giannis and Harden have taken several shots at each other and can't stand each other. But other than that, I think it'd be a great fit.
All right, Philly. If Philly says we'll give you Ben Simmons and whoever, Tobias Harris or something.
Well, it would be what the Rockets will want there is Ben Simmons and picks.
Okay.
Tybal could be a pick. And look, PJ Tucker's probably getting traded at some point too. It would make a lot of sense if he's traded along with Harden to Philly. Daryl Morey obviously knows both players well. PJ Tucker is a great role player on a expiring contract. So you can expand the deal that way. But yeah, it's Ben Simmons, and then you haggle over picks. You haggle whether Tybal's in the deal. I still think that is the most likely scenario. I'm not certain that there is a consensus within the Sixers organization that they want to have anything to do with those kind of discussions.
And then I look at the Miami Heat, and I have somebody who works there, and I just said, give me the validity of that possibility, and so I guess they're exploring this. And if Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero would be the two assets that you might be able to get, okay, if I'm Houston, you got my attention. Because I do have young players. I have an all-star, maybe a potential all-star there. And maybe I get rid of all this drama, and there's a little addition by subtraction there. But if I'm Miami, Jimmy Butler had a hard time playing in Philly and Minnesota because of, these players who are immature. I mean, James Harden can be immature and want it his way. I can't imagine Jimmy Butler putting up with the tardiness of James Harden.
Well, and I do think James Harden, the Heat culture, could be an interesting fit, and maybe he adapts. James Harden, when he gets traded, I think there will be an understanding that his legacy is on the line. Jimmy Butler and James Harden do have a relationship, of course. So do James and Russ, a much longer relationship.
And Chris Paul.
It's funny though. It's funny though. The Rockets thought they were getting Jimmy Butler, not this offseason, last offseason.
Right.
Had it lined up. They were ready to ship out Capella and Gordon to make the room. Harden and Butler had been talking. They were ready. And then Jimmy ghosted them and went and signed, literally did not return texts and phone calls and went to Miami.
Ouch.
But look, those things, players get over those kind of things. But Miami, I would imagine, would the first thing they would say is, hell no, Bam is not on the table. Absolutely not. Don't even ask again. But Hero would absolutely intrigue the Rockets. Duncan Robinson would absolutely intrigue the Rockets. The Heat have several vets on expiring contracts where you can make the money work. They're a little bit limited in picks, but there's absolutely ways for an offer that makes sense to be put together for Miami.
He's Tim MacMahon. He covers the NBA for ESPN. How much better are the Lakers now than they were a couple of months ago?
Well, obviously we've got to see how things fit. On paper, I think they're significantly better. Marc Gasol, to me, is a major upgrade over what they had at center. A much different player, but still, because of his physicality and intelligence, a great defense player. I think a little bit of a better fit offensively, just because he can space the floor and give AD some room to work. And then Schroeder and Harrell. Look, Schroeder right now wants to start. We'll see. My guess is there's some kind of smooth transition to get him back coming off the bench. And that Schroeder-Harrell pick and roll coming off the bench is a ton of firepower. And look, if LeBron is healthy and AD is healthy, the Lakers are the favorites, whether they upgraded the supporting cast or not, but they did.
The most interesting team people aren't talking about is who?
The most interesting team people aren't talking about. That is a good question. I'm trying to figure out who people aren't talking about. People are talking about Phoenix. People aren't talking. I don't know that the Nuggets, even though they went to the West Finals, I don't know if the Nuggets are a franchise that people talk about a whole lot. And obviously, Jokic is a perennial All-NBA candidate. Jamal Murray at 23. If the bubble was a was a breaking out for him, was a springboard for him. They've got another star there. Michael Porter Jr. is one of the most fascinating talents in the league. We'll see if he can put it together. If he does, they potentially have a third star. The other thing is, if they wanted to be aggressive in the trade market, Michael Porter Jr. is absolutely the kind of, he can be a centerpiece to go get a star. I mean, look, if the Nuggets call up the Rockets and they're talking Porter Jr. picks and, like a Gary Harris Barton combo to make some salaries work, those conversations could heat up.
That's interesting. Did the Clippers improve?
I think Montrezl Harrell leaving probably needed to happen for the Clippers from a chemistry standpoint. I think Serge Ibaka comes in there and maybe fits a little bit better, with the Kawhi Paul George combo. There's not the, old Clips versus, kind of the new regime there. Ibaka is I mean, as a backup center or a starter really is a heck of a player. I need to see it from the Clippers. And honestly, my biggest concern about the Clippers is Paul George. And Paul George now, and definitely Paul George as that extension kicks in and he ages. Let's be honest, Paul George just kind of crumbled under the pressure of being a superstar on a team expected to contend. So to me, out of all the guys who are all NBA caliber players, he might have the most to prove this season.
Your honest reaction when you saw that he got that that max extension?
Well,
does everybody have to get that, Tim? Like, couldn't they say, you know what, you're not worth the max, Paul. You're a B, maybe a B plus player. Why does everybody have to get the max? I don't understand this.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. And why do superstars have to be able to determine the practice and travel schedules and flex their power with personnel moves? It is a player-run league. That's just the way it is. And with the Clippers, they went all in on Paul George when they pushed all those picks, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Gallinari, put that massive package together, really to get him and Kawhi. But they were all in on it then. So I guess they felt like, look, we're all in. There's no reason to mess around with this contract extension and have a situation that was shaky last year in terms of happiness and comfort and all those kind of things. I guess they felt like they had to make him as comfortable as possible.
In fairness to James Harden, Luka Doncic didn't show up in shape either. Looked like he had a gut. So when people say you pick on James Harden, it's a valid criticism that I did pick on him and I didn't pick on Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic.
Well, listen.
Yes.
Those dudes are also naturally thick dudes. I mean, let's be honest. Neither one of them is ever going to pose shirtless in GQ. Harden's going to wear some fancy clothes and be on the cover. But I mean, they're big, thick-bodied dudes. And I'm just telling you this: James Harden's weight ranks about 196th on the list of the Rockets' concerns right now.
Good stuff, Tim. And you're doing a great job. I enjoy reading your stuff, and we appreciate your time. Hope to have you on soon. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Dan.
That's Tim MacMahon. He is covering the NBA for the Mothership.